Chapter 3 of Gold by Stewart Edward White. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Voyage. If I had any scruples, and I do not remember many, they were overcome within the next day or two. It was agreed that I was to go in Ward's employ, he to pay my passage money and all expenses, I to give him half the gold I might pick up. This seemed to me, at least, an eminently satisfactory and businesslike arrangement. Ward bought the outfits for both of us. It turned out that he was a Mexican war veteran, hence the military cape, and in consequence an old campaigner. His experience and my rural upbringing saved us from most of the ridiculous purchases men made at that time. We had stout clothes and boots, a waterproof apiece, picks and shovel, blankets, and long strips of canvas, 3 axes, knives, 1 rifle, a double shotgun, and a Colt's revolver apiece. The latter seemed to me a wonderful weapon, with its 6 charges in the turning cylinder, but I had no opportunity to try it. We decided instantly for the Panama route. "It's the most expensive, but also the quickest," said he. "A sailing ship around the Horn takes forever, and across the plains is ditto. Every day we wait, some other fellow is landing in the diggings." Nearly every evening he popped into our boarding house, where, owing to the imminence of my departure, I had been restored to favor. I never did find out where he lived. We took our passage at the steamship office. We went to the variety shows and sang "Oh, Susanna" with the rest. We strutted a bit, and were only restrained from donning our flannel shirts and Colt's revolving pistols in the streets of New York by a very little remnant, of common sense. When the time came at last, we boarded our steamship and hung over the rail and cheered like crazy things. I personally felt as though a lid had been lifted from my spirit, and that a rolling cloud of enthusiasm was at last allowed to puff out to fill my heaven. In 2 days we were both over being seasick, and had a chance to look around us. Our ship was a side-wheel steamer of about 1,000 tons, and she carried 280 passengers, which was about 200 more than her regular complement. They were as miscellaneous a lot as mortal eye ever fell upon, from the lank Maine Yankee to the tall, sallow, black-haired man from Louisiana. I suppose, too, all grades of the social order must have been represented, but in our youth and high spirits we did not go into details of that sort. Every man, with the exception of a dozen or so, wore a red shirt, a slouch hat, a revolver, and a bowie knife, and most of us had started to grow beards. Unless one scrutinized closely such unimportant details as features, ways of speech, or manners, one could not place his man's former status, whether as lawyer, physician, or roustabout. And we were too busy for that. I never saw such a busy place as that splattering old ship slowly wallowing her way south toward the tropical seas. We had 58,000 things to discuss, beginning with Marshall's first discovery, skipping through the clouds of rumors of all sorts, down to intimate details of climate, outfit, prospects, plans, and the best methods of getting at the gold. And to all these subjects we brought a dozen points of view, each of which was strange to all the others. We had with us men from every stratum of society, and from every point of the compass. Each was a product of his own training and mental upbringing, and was incapable, without great effort, of understanding his neighbor's point of view. Communication and travel were in those days very limited, it must be remembered, and different communities and sections of the country produced strong types. With us discussion became an adventurous exploration into a new country. The man from Maine could not but be interested in finding out what that strange, straight-haired dark creature from Carolina might think of even the most commonplace subject. Only our subjects were not commonplace. My chief impression of that voyage down was of knots of men talking hurriedly and excitedly, as though there were not a moment to waste. and the hum of voices rising and falling far into the night. Only two things were capable of breaking in on this tense absorption of the men in each other and in their subject. One was dolphins, and the other the meal gong. When dolphins appeared, each rushed promptly to the side of the ship and discharged his revolver at the beasts. I never saw any harm come from these fusillades, but they made a wonderful row. Meal times always caught the majority unaware. They tumbled and jostled down the companionways, only to find the wise and forethoughtful had preempted every chair. Whereupon, with most ludicrous expression of chagrin or of assumed nonchalance, they trooped back to meet the laughter of the wise, if not forethoughtful, who had realized the uselessness of the rush. After a moment's grumbling, however, the discussions were resumed. There was some quarreling, but not much. A holiday spirit pervaded the lot, for they were men cut off from all experience, all accustomed surroundings, all the restraints of training, and they were embarked on the great adventure. I do not now remember many of them individually. They were of a piece with the thousands we were destined to encounter. But I do retain a most vivid mental picture of them collectively, with their red shirts, their slouch hats, their belts full of weapons, their eyes of eagerness, their souls of dreams, brimming with pent energy, theorizing, arguing, disputing, ready at an instant's notice for any sort of a joke or excitement that would relieve the tension, boisterous, noisy, laughing loudly, smothering by sheer weight of ridicule individual resentments. Altogether a wonderful picture of the youth and hope and energy and high spirits of the time. Never before nor since have I looked upon such a variety of equipment as strewed the decks and cabins of that ship. A great majority of the passengers knew nothing whatever about out-of-door life, and less than nothing as to the conditions in California and on the way. Consequently, they had bought liberally of all sorts of idiotic patent contraptions. India rubber played a prominent part, and the deck was cumbered with at least 40 sorts of machines for separating gold from the soil, some of them to use water, some muscular labor, and one tremendous affair with wings was supposed to fan away everything but the gold. Differing in everything else, they were alike in one thing. They all had been devised by men who had never seen any but manufactured gold. I may add that I never saw a machine of the kind actually at work in the diggings. Just now, however, I looked on the owners of these contraptions with envy, and thought ourselves at a disadvantage with only our picks, shovels, and axes. But we had with us a wonderful book that went far toward cheering up the poorly equipped. Several copies have been brought aboard, so we all had a chance to read it. The work was entitled 3 Weeks in the Gold Mines, and was written by a veracious individual who signed himself H.I. Simpson. I now doubt